Putin is in the crosshairs, the Kremlin is trembling, the conspiracy is already inside, a coup is ready, the elite is feverish, the FSB is in disarray, Putin is surrounded by traitors who will pull the trigger first, nuclear blackmail is off the charts, Russia is exploding from within, the regions have risen up, protests are flaring, the people demand freedom, the end of an era, the economy is collapsing, the army is losing, the Kremlin is on the edge of the abyss, all the details coming up next. Ukraine Today welcomes you, Renata Slanova here with the latest events. The Russian Empire is coming apart at the seams. Failures at the front, the collapse of the oil and gas sector, sanctions, and an elite rebellion. All of this is pushing Putin's regime to the brink of collapse. Experts are convinced a coup is not a fantasy but a real scenario. The Kremlin is in fear, the FSB is in a panic, and the dictator himself, feeling the crosshairs on him, resorts to nuclear threats to prove that everything is under control. Even Western experts confirm that Putin's downfall is near. In
December 2023, Putin was supposed to visit a tank factory in Nizhny Tagil. The head of the factory was retired Lieutenant General Alexei Maslov. He had extensive experience and contacts with NATO. Thanks to his position as Russia's military representative to the alliance, he would have been in place if the regime were overthrown to negotiate a peaceful settlement of the war in Ukraine. Interestingly, on the day of Putin's planned visit, he died, and the Russian dictator never showed up. So this is not the first time Putin has been the target of a coup. The FSB is a paranoid organization, which is why they look for such operations. However, I think you can count 3 of them on your fingers, not to mention others that the FSB stopped.
Remember Prigozhin's march on Moscow? At that time, the whole world saw Russia without protection. Columns of rebels marched through cities and no one even lifted a finger. Experts are convinced that Prigozhin showed the whole world that the untouchable Putin is vulnerable.
Prigozhin demonstrated that Putin is vulnerable in different ways. It's telling that he was able to bring his military forces halfway to Moscow without encountering any resistance, possibly stopping only because he had no idea what his ultimate goal was. This shows that Putin is not as well protected as he wants people to think. There's a sense of paranoia here.
Moreover, when a dictator puts on a new uniform and stages a nuclear show in front of the cameras, that's not strength, it's panic.
When you have to make such statements, it shows that things aren't as good as they're advertised to be. And when you have to dress up in a new military uniform, it shows that Putin really wants to send this message. However, at the same time, it's a sign of weakness, and I agree. When you're weak, show strength. However, I don't believe the West will fall for it. I think the West doesn't believe his claims that Putin can strike anywhere and bypass all NATO and US air defense systems. If you have to demonstrate it, it's a lie. However, this isn't for a Western audience, but for Russians who are starting to lose trust.
Meanwhile, the US struck at the Kremlin's weak spot, its wallet. Sanctions have brought down the oil giants, Lukoil and Rosneft. Washington delivered its verdict. With Putin's tail between his legs, Dmitriev couldn't get a word out of the US.
Essentially, Dmitriev was ridiculed in the US and he failed his mission. And then Scott Bessent himself made it clear. Dmitriev can say whatever he wants, but these sanctions matter. I think to understand their potential impact on Russia, you need to take a step back and look at what's happening to its economy.
Moreover, right now Ukraine is hitting Russia like never before. Storm Shadow, drones, long-range missiles, strikes are landing deep behind the front lines. This is a new level of warfare.
At first they attacked air defenses, and now Ukraine has struck infrastructure. 20 out of Russia's 38 largest oil refineries have been attacked. That's why Ukrainian sanctions are having an effect. Strikes have also targeted military facilities, particularly in Crimea, as well as industrial plants where drones are produced and ammunition depots. Thus, interceptions and deep strikes aimed at undermining their ability to finance the war are having an effect. Obviously, there will be more to come. But the Ukrainian version of sanctions directly affects not only Russia's military potential, but also the Russian civilian population.
The FSB accuses anti-war activists and Khodorkovsky of plotting against Putin, but experts think otherwise.
I think it's symbolic. Every time Putin threatens with nuclear weapons, he finds himself in the crosshairs. And in many ways, he's in the crosshairs because of this. After the latest possible assassination attempt, or even a plot potentially coming from London, Putin is under threat. Because his army is failing. He was convinced he had taken Pokrovsk. However, Volodymyr Zelensky made it clear that things aren't moving that fast. The city hasn't fallen yet.
Putin is looking for enemies because he himself is afraid that power might slip from his hands. Moreover, people in Russia are becoming increasingly bold in taking to the streets. Protests are flaring up in St. Petersburg. People are singing banned songs calling for the dictator to be overthrown. And the Kremlin no longer knows how to stop the wave. More details in the following report.
For almost a quarter of a century, Vladimir Putin has been building a system of personal power in Russia, a totalitarian state where any dissent is punished to instill fear and cement the regime. But today, this monolith is beginning to crack. The Russian dictator is in a panic, afraid of losing his grip on Russia. As the Telegraph writes, the bunker dweller is meticulously guarding his regime against any threats. Recently, the FSB accused Mikhail Khodorkovsky and 22 other members of the Russian anti-war committee of preparing a coup d'etat. According to the security service, the organization is allegedly planning a violent seizure of power and the overthrow of the constitutional order.
This tells us that the Kremlin is paranoid. Putin is looking for enemies in an attempt to strengthen his regime. John Herbst, senior director of the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council and former US ambassador to Ukraine.
After spending 10 years in a Siberian prison, Khodorkovsky was released in 2013 and fled to Europe, where he founded the Anti-War Committee in 2022. In an interview with The Telegraph, he stated that the FSB's accusation reflects the Kremlin's fear of the future and the issue of power transfer.
What do we have in Russia? A prime minister who was not elected by anyone but appointed by Putin. Courts appointed by Putin. A parliament whose seats were filled as a result of fraudulent elections and whose legitimacy no one believes in. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, Russian entrepreneur and publicist.
They couldn't care less about the liberals who fled after being neutered. They're not afraid at all. They're not afraid of each other. Of the same predators, those who walk around you, smile in your face every day, and swear loyalty. These are the ones who can, and Putin knows this perfectly well. And the Prigozhin affair, even if it was just theater, clearly showed that no one is going to defend him. Neither the National Guard, nor the police, nor the rank and file, nor the generals, no one cares, no one gives a damn. And that's why Putin and
Indeed, fear becomes the key word. The dictator is cornered and the economic situation only heightens the anxiety. Russia's Minister of Economy, Maxim Reshetnikov, has admitted that the country is on the verge of a recession. The banking system is suffocating under the debts of defense enterprises. According to Harvard analyst Craig Kennedy, $190 billion in loans have been issued to defense industry companies without guarantees. And now this bubble could burst at any moment. Moreover, Ukrainian drones have destroyed more than half of Russia's oil refineries, forcing Russians into huge lines at gas stations and causing a fuel shortage. And new sanctions from across the ocean have only intensified the blow. Donald Trump has imposed the most painful restrictions since the start of the war. The giants Rosneft and Lukoil have come under fire. Now China and India are cutting back on purchases of Russian oil. Almost 3 million barrels per day are at risk. And with them, half of the Kremlin's revenues. But Putin fears not only internal threats but also external ones. The dictator is pulling more and more air defense systems toward the Kremlin. There are already 5 layers of defense around the capital. Pantsir, S-300 and S-400 systems are being brought in from all regions.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The main question is, who will protect Putin from the Kremlin itself? These people in suits with dead eyes and clearance to be close to him. Are they bodyguards or the future liquidators of the regime? More on this coming up.
They are always nearby, at summits, funerals, hockey games, and even in the sauna. Putin's bodyguards are not just security, they are an entire parallel universe where the main purpose in life has become preserving the body of an aging dictator. They stand like statues, scanning the crowd and seem not to blink. And if someone gets too close, they instantly form a human shield.
Foreign social networks, a video is going viral where Putin's bodyguard looks like the Terminator. His gaze is as if...
There are a huge number of videos about Putin's security online. But who are all these people and why are they trusted more than any minister? In the 90s, St. Petersburg's Vice Mayor Putin didn't have state security, so a private individual, Roman Cheprov, a former bodyguard of celebrities, was by his side.
Here, within the walls of the Kremlin, the history of our country has been made for centuries.
Here he is, Roman Cheprov, standing in the center of the frame, right next to Ksenia Sobchak and Alexander Rosenbaum during Putin's inauguration.
Tseprov became not just a bodyguard, but a go-between for the future president and the criminal world. Through him passed both casino contracts and flows of black cash. So let's just say, the beginnings of Putin's security service were rather creative.
The head of the security agency repeatedly carried out all sorts of delicate assignments. For example, it is believed that it was Tseprov who acted as the intermediary between Putin and the St. Petersburg crime bosses.
When Putin became president, the myth of an eternal threat became part of the cult. Officially, there were allegedly 5 assassination attempts on him. Snipers, Arabs, Chechen militants, a lineup of enemies to suit the mood. And the more threats there are, the more security he gets.
5 assassination attempts, or so I was told. Not as many as Castro had. There were 50 attempts on his life. According to official data, there were 5 on you. Yes.
Since then, Putin's security has become not just a service, but almost a whole religion. To get into the inner circle, you need to be not just healthy and loyal. You need a perfect passport, no beard, no tattoos, and no doubts.
All of Putin's bodyguards have service experience. This could be the FSO or FSB Academy, and before that, military schools. Candidates go through several interviews, talk to a psychologist, and of course, take a polygraph. After all, how else can you find out if the person guarding Vladimir Vladimirovich is a patriot or not?
The average age of Putin's bodyguard is 36 with a salary of 80 to 100,000 rubles. Yes, they protect the nation's treasure, but they earn less than a Moscow sales manager. Still, they get honor, stability, and trips to Gelendzhik on assignment. Alexei Dyumin, the main star of the Kremlin security, is said to have saved Putin from drowning and even from a bear. Over the years of service, Dyumin rose from bodyguard to governor of Tula and later became a presidential aide. Essentially, Putin's security detail is a career elevator, only it goes up through loyalty.
It was a very remote site in the mountains, and at night I was on duty in the house, the president was already resting, and then over the radio they told me, "A bear is at your entrance." Naturally, I was armed and the president was upstairs. So the bear and I looked each other in the eyes, he backed off a little, I opened the door and emptied the entire magazine of my pistol at his feet.
Even Putin's cooks, who are FSO officers, not only grill meat but also practice shooting at the range. Every single ingredient is checked as if it were a nuclear launch button. Before Putin himself tries the dish, his security tries it first.
All my cooks are employees of the Federal Protective Service. They are military personnel of various ranks. I don't have any other cooks.
Today, Putin travels in an armored train equipped with a hammam, a gym, and secure communications. And everywhere he goes, a special briefcase follows him, not with papers or a laptop inside, but with the president's biomaterials. Putin's security feeds him, protects him, and idolizes him because in their worldview, the safety of one person is more important than the safety of the entire country.
Shocking. Putin is losing Russia. Bashkortostan has exploded. Thousands killed in the war, protests, outbreaks of rage. The region is rising up. The Kremlin is in panic, people are taking to the streets. Russia is igniting from within.
Bashkortostan has become a source of cannon fodder for the Kremlin. The Russian elite sends Bashkirs to the front without caring about the losses. As a result, Bashkortostan is the leader in the number of deaths in the so-called special military operation.
The Russian Empire will soon cease to exist. And then our peoples will finally gain the long-awaited freedom. Everything is being decided right now. The time has come to act. Do not stay silent. Rise up. Fight for your independence. Freedom for the oppressed peoples.
This is an address from the soldiers of the Bashkort Company. The unit is fighting on Ukraine's side in the International Legion. Meanwhile, in Russia itself, the company has been declared a terrorist organization. The company's symbol is a flag in the national colors of Bashkortostan, but in a different order. Just like on the old flag from the time of the Bashkirs' struggle for independence in 1917 to 1919. A crescent in the center completes the design. The Bashkirs are helping Ukraine defend its independence and dream that this very independence will come to their own home as well.
The Republic has its own oil, gold, copper, and industry. And Moscow is sucking all of this up for itself. But the Bashkorts themselves are rather poor. We live in poverty, they take everything away. All of this should be ours. They can't live without us. It's the other way around. They won't be able to. We will succeed.
But the Bashkir struggle is not only at the front, but also in the rear. The underground movement in Bashkortostan has been active since 2022, and it's overseen by that very Bashkort company.
There are activists, people who, under our guidance, work for the good of the homeland, that is, Bashkortostan. And honestly, sometimes I find myself thinking about it at times. It's hard to say who was in greater danger. Us here, fighting in Ukraine, on the battlefield, at the front with weapons in our hands, or the civilians present in that area who were engaged in carrying out certain important tasks, all while knowing that literally anyone around you at any given moment could potentially be an enemy.
Because of the enormous risk, all operations of the Bashkir underground remain secret, but sometimes footage of their struggle appears online, like, for example, the burning of the Russian Empire's flag in January of this year. And from time to time, symbols appear on the streets of Bashkortostan that are hard to miss. And for example, transformer substations just happen to catch fire.
Arson of transformer substations, workshops, and enterprises that work for the defense industry. After that, we have information that work there stopped, and it stopped for a long time. We also had an operation to mine a bridge.
The underground does a lot of work, but very carefully. Many operations will only become known years later, and some the world will never find out about. But every single operation, even the smallest one, is a step toward the freedom of Bashkortostan, and they will achieve it.
And what do you think about a possible coup in the Kremlin? We look forward to your comments. There's more to come.